Hello friends, this is Toolbox here, hoping to bring you guys a limited review for Opus 16 for Final Fantasy. I'm going to go over sealed, pre-release, draft style decks and archetypes, as well as just kind of rating all the cards, figure out exactly what colors you want to play, what cards you want to play, maybe give people, I know some people are coming out from a break from the game. If you're coming back out to the game, this will give you a little bit of an idea of what to look out for when you do open your pre-release kits or any other kind of limited stuff. So let's kind of dive right in, and we'll just kind of go over the ratings a little bit. I'm just going to kind of go 1 through 10 on any of the forwards, monsters, or summons. Any of the backups, we're just going to give them a 1 through 5. We're just going to go ahead and rate everything as well. We'll go over some of the card synergies and general archetypes that you'll want to generally pick. But with Final Fantasy, besides just some obvious synergies, you usually just want to have some of the best cards, and hopefully this rating system will help you out, and also just give you an idea of like what every card in the set kind of just what you're gonna be looking at. So if we're going 10, obviously it'd be our high rating for anything that's not a backup, and 5 for our high rating for backups. And we're really, you can just kind of look at where those kind of go there, and I'll link this Excel document in the description below, as well as I know Crystarium's working on a limited guide. If that's up, I'll edit that into the description as well. It was a great group of people, and I know Jeff Curran will have a great guide out as well, so if you prefer to read that, that'll be out there. Alright, so we're going to start here, and actually the first card, one of the biggest things about it is it's a backup. A lot of people look at this art and keep thinking it's a forward, but notice the white text box and it says backup. So we got Vaughn. He deals damage, and if you've cast 3 cards, you can deal 8k. An important thing, he's a rare, so you're not going to see too terribly many. Usually you'll see 1, maybe 2 in your pre-release. If you do get 2, you can potentially get it for that S ability. That S ability will be quite relevant, but for the card itself, it's pretty standard fare. Unfortunately, you do have to work to be able to get that higher damage, but most of the time you're probably going to draw this in the early part of the game. You're just going to go ahead and play it out. It's not going to do anything for you, but that's fine. As the game develops, obviously the extra 3k damage or dealing up to 8k, if you've cast 3 things, that'll be pretty good. So this card really does kind of get a little bit above average, because you can kind of get there, but really not too much. I still am gonna sell, like, if I could, I would go like 3.5, but I think we'll sell on a 3. You'll want to play this guy in your deck. He's just standard fine backup, but also has pretty good upside. If you do get a bunch for the S ability, definitely look into doing that, and we'll just keep going. Alright, Ace. So this guy is notably one of the EXs in the set, and for him, he also kind of works well in that line with Vaughn. Fire, especially, is going to have a good amount of ping throughout the rest of the set. So most decks, this card is going to try to convince you to go into like a 3-color deck. There's not much color fixing in this set, so I do advise against that most of the time. There are a few cards that are quite splashable, though, so those can help enable this guy to have 3 different cards in your hand of different elements. Another thing to point out, there is no multi-element card, so if anybody's hoping to live in the dream of just revealing a multi-element off color stuff and easily hit the 3, that's not going to happen in this set. But just dealing for 6k is generally going to be good enough. You can combine that with most of your other ping and fire, but if you do get the 3, that's going to be great. And him getting a little bit larger for everything you control, it's probably going to give you about plus 2k, so he's going to be a pretty good attacker. Is a hero, so you're not going to see a ton, but this guy's definitely pretty good, so we're going to go ahead and just give him a 7. He's a little bit above average. He may even, actually, Yeah. We'll stick with 7. Removal is pretty great in limited, and this guy will definitely be able to do removal for you. It is going to be a fairly aggressive format from what I have, gleaned from the set. So we'll just kind of see where that goes. All right, then we jump back down to Elvis. Elvis, important part of him is he is a soiree member. He is the only soiree member in Fire, though. So a lot of people are going to get tempted to try to play the soiree deck. I do think the soiree deck will be quite good in limited, but this guy being off color can make things a little bit more difficult. There is a soiree member we'll get to later that does help you cast your other soiree members. However, Elvis is probably, if you're gonna exclude a soiree member, he is probably it. But he is perfectly fine to include. Once again, that removal's great, but you're not going to get much replay from him. He is an EX, but you're really just going to play 1 or 2, and you're going to play it once in the game. You're going to get the effect, and that's going to be good. But that's not always going to happen. If you're trying to just splash just for Elvis, it's not going to be really worth it. So he's definitely going to just get like a playable for me. He does fit into that archetype, and in those right decks, he's going to be playable, but the fact that you have to jump out of color for him is going to be a little bit more difficult. So, and in like any kind of other Fire deck, he's not really going to do anything. So he's literally just going to be a 2 CP backup, which is fine, and he's playable. All right, Onion Knight. Important part about this card, if you have no cards in hand, the discard 2 cards is not conditional upon you drawing the cards. So you can play this guy with no hand and just draw 2 cards. Really important thing to be able to do in limited. Being able to, kind of play off the top of your deck and gas back up, be able to set up for some future turns is really, really big. And, the overall power of, all your cards are not going to be super high. So just being able to get some guy out there for essentially free is going to be great. So this guy's definitely right up there with Ace. All right, and Cloud. So this guy has a few different options. There is not a ton of 7 in the set, and we have a little bit right over here. We can pull this up. You can just... So this is all of the potential forwards that, well, I guess it's only forwards, so only a few cards that he can actually pull up. So you're really only, if you're going into ice, you're gonna splash this for the second effect, but he does have quite a few different options, and as we mentioned, just dealing the chip damage is going to be fine. So once again, dealing 5k is gonna be good just to kind of work. And then searching for copies for an S ability. There is like a few S abilities that they're pretty worthwhile, namely Montleonis. We'll get to him later. There would be a pretty big blowout in limited, so that is a very good effect. But once again, you may have this guy a little early, and then he's just gonna kind of be just a 3 CP. Sometimes do nothing if you don't have that 7 forward. So I'd be a little hesitant to play this guy if you're not in ice, but he's definitely will be fine. So we'll still leave him in average, but if you're not in ice, a little worse, but definitely playable. Alright, Crimson Hound. So now we get into all the monsters of the set. So there are 2 different monsters. They're commons and heroes. The common rotation has a very, very nice effect on it that will help a lot in limited, where you pay 1 CP and the monster breaks, but then you look at the top 2 and you can rearrange them in the in any order. So this will help you to be able to set up EX Burst is the biggest thing, and that can definitely help that last little bit of making sure that your opponent's not getting your 1 bomb out of your sealed or draft pool, or guaranteeing that you hit an EX. That's also really nice. So definitely keep that in mind on all these monsters, as well as there are a few cards that want monsters in your own break zone, so that helps as well. But this one just comes in and deals 8k. That is going to kill most things in the set, and as we've seen, there's a little bit other chip damage. So Crimson Hound, definitely good. So he's... Keep in mind, though, whenever we're talking monsters or summons, these aren't forwards, so you can't win the game off of them. So that's always going to hurt them a little bit and limited. But as far as removal goes, this guy is some pretty great removal. So so far we're still looking at fire being quite good. And then we have Black Waltz. So there are 3 different Black Waltz, an Ice, a Fire, and a Lightning at Common, Rare, and Legend, I believe, respectively. And then they all have discard effects, and they can all discard each other. And the only other card they can discard in the set is Vivi. So it's important to know where those cards are. And Vivi, of course, is in Lightning. We'll get to him a little bit later. But all of them do an extra effect when they are discarded. An important thing about this self-discard mechanic is there are quite a few cards that combo with him. So as we already saw, Onion Knight can work with these, where if you discard Black Waltz, any of those, with the Onion Knight's effect, then that will actually trigger the Black Waltz's effect. And then obviously if you discard them from the Black Waltz's effect, you get both effects, so that's great. So some obvious synergy there within Fire and especially in Lightning, so that's probably where you're gonna look for some of these decks, as Fire also has I think 1 or 2 more discard spells. But there are also some other payoffs for this. We'll get to that later, but that in Water there's a White Mage that can help alleviate some of the hand loss that you get from these effects, as well as Unalesca in Ice can also help trigger these effects. So that way you are gaining value even when you're just discarding cards. Overall though, 3 CP, 7k, he's gonna kind of hit in the average park there, but with this effect, he's definitely gonna be a good bit above average, but I wouldn't bank too much on this. It is going to be some removal, but that means you're not developing your board. These are going to be the kind of cards you kind of want to stuff your deck with in some of those last slots, because it's going to help enable your strategy. But you're not, like, if you're just playing some of these guys and you don't have enough of them to discard, you're not going to gain a tremendous amount of value. Also limited, you're not going to have as much deck synergy as you always think you will, so you may not have as many Black Mages as you think you do. Like only having 1 or 2, you're only going to enable this effect maybe once or twice throughout the game. So it may not happen when you really need it. So the conditional nature on the removal kind of makes it a little bit more sketchy. All right, Black Mage. This is just continuing a little bit extra ping. This guy's kind of just the standard little, very small amounts of ping. There is a summon in every element, and it is a common rarity, so you should have summons in your deck. So the 5k damage is not going to be hard to enable, but he's, 5k damage, he's just kind of going to be a generic little guy there for you. So let's give him a pretty generic score. Alright, Samurai. So first off, 4 CP backups. We don't love that, but this effect is quite useful, because it kind of works like Devout back in the day. However, it only picks up fire forwards. You can only use this ability on your turn too, so don't think you're like gonna surprise anybody. And I don't believe there are any other Samurais in the set, so the only thing this guy is doing is just like, he'll pull out your Onion Knight when you have no cards in hand, or your Ace, or something like that. An important thing with him is that you can use this ability anytime during your turn. So you can do this like in the middle of combat, bring out somebody with haste and surprise your opponent when they think they're safe, something like that. Small little tricks there. Also notably, there are some other 4 costs, and there's a legend that pays off for the 4 costs, the Kieran, so can help stack your deck in those 4 costs that will help enable those cards to work a little bit better. Oh, we'll give that guy a quick little rating. So he is pretty average, but you're gonna when you do bring back the forward, he's gonna get a little bit above average. Once again, I'd probably give him like a 3.5, but we'll sell on a 3 for him. All right, Jin. Jin's pretty great. Here's the rotation of the hero monsters. However, the hero monsters aren't actual forwards until at damage 3. But at damage 3, them becoming forwards really helps make up for the downside of being a monster. However, it only provides a passive damage buff for you until then. This passive damage buff, though, is not going to be as... So an important thing to note, it doesn't help your monster deal more damage, your summon deal more damage, your backups deal more damage. It's only the forwards. But this will work for both combat and their like abilities. So it definitely can be quite helpful for, you know, your 7k can now trade into their 8k, and that's pretty big. Or like, you know, with a black mage, he can now deal 6k damage, or Ace can, you know, deal, you know, 10 or 7. So it's a little bit better numbers. Definitely will help you out. Good guy. Definitely like this guy. So we'll give him probably a 6. He's above average again. You know, definitely playable. All right, Squall. This guy is a legend. Some very interesting art from Amano here. The biggest thing with this guy is actually probably going to be the haste initially. Somebody's going to have less than 2 cards in hand, and including you. So you can just pitch down and play the Squall and really kind of go all in. There's not much that can really punish you for going wide. They're really just 1 or 2 cards for kind of overextending. So you can generally feel pretty good about going in pretty heavily. And then when you attack, deal 4k to all of the forwards your opponent controls. This effect is strong. Then it's also going to pretty much prevent them from blocking, because if they do, they'll take another 4k to all their forwards. This card's going to be amazing. It's going to break stalemates. It's going to kill your opponents. This would be like... If I had this card, I would play every samurai I got, just so you can constantly revive this guy. If this guy's in play, you're probably not losing the game. So... Definitely a bomb. This guy's actually kind of a bomb plus, because he's both, you know, going to be hasty. He's going to be big enough most of the time, but bigger than that, he's going to one-sided wipe their board. He is phenomenal. The only thing this card doesn't do is like also draw a card or deal an extra damage when he hit. Oh wait, no, he does deal an extra damage if people have no cards in hand. But yeah, this guy's phenomenal. All right. Moving on from that, so now we have the Shijins. I hope I pronounced that correctly. But all of these monsters can be cast with any color CP as long as you have one in your break zone. They are rare, so that you should get some number of almost all of them. And then as long as you have one in your break zone, you can cast it with any color. This will hopefully make like an entire cycle. So if you do get some number of these, you just kind of want to play as many of them as you can. This is one of the very good ones. It does deal 5k when it comes in. Once again, this will be helped out by Jin, all of those other stuff. As you can tell though, like the ratio between like it and Black Mage is not quite as good. As long as it does draw you the card of getting another Shijin out of the deck, that's going to be really strong. So it's effectively only 2, but if you don't have that, or you know, you've missed or something, it's going to be a little bit more costly at 4 CP. That being said, I definitely think this will be a very good strategy for a lot of people, as long as you get, I would say, about 4 of the Shijins at least. You can try to make this kind of work. Ideally, you want 2 at least in your main colors, and then 4 spread out between all of them, and you should be okay. But these guys will definitely make like a little bit of a strategy, and definitely pick them up. So I'm going to give them a little bit above average, but they're not insane. They're not going to win the games for you, but they'll definitely help fill up your field. All right, Soul. Now we get to our first crystal card of the new Opus, and with Soul, he has two abilities that require crystals, and then one ability that helps gain crystals. So the first one is when he comes in, you can pay a crystal and then resurrect something for less. This is obviously a very, very good ability. If you can get the crystal ahead of time and then play him, that's phenomenal. Missing out on that is not like the end of the world though, because the rest of his effect is also very, very good. Namely, there are not a humongous amount of crystal generation in the set, so Soul doing both crystal generation and giving you a payoff is really, really big. The only other like notable cards that will generate crystals for you on like reliable levels besides like 1 or 2 is only going to generate 1, and you're really going to actually have to work outside of the element of fire. So if you pick up some of those other ones that we'll kind of talk about later, Soul will be, you know, even better, but as is, he's still phenomenal. On the general assumption you're not going to get that first ability, the other ability is still very, very good. Just being able to party attack, you know, let's say you have 2 guys out already, and then you have Soul, you can party attack, and then when they block, you get this option to always buff your board, and that will be really, really big for the game, in addition to just being only a 2 CP cost and helping generate those crystals. This guy's actually quite good. He is going to be a little bit easier to remove at the 5k cost, or strength, but I would definitely try to play this guy as much as you can. If you get him, I would definitely play him. Alright, Delita, and here is the only other generation in Fire that we were going to go over. So with Delita, actually I think, yeah, it's just him. Yeah, with him, you can sometimes set up these nice boards where you can, you know, remove 2 of your guys. With his ability, while coming in, you can deal 8k damage as opposed to just the 4k it normally would deal. And by setting that up, then, you know, let's say you kill 2 forwards, then I'll help you generate 2 more crystals back, which you could then feed into like your Soul. And there's another card that actually feeds into crystals very well in Fire as well, which we'll get to in Ramza. But the big thing is I wouldn't focus too much on his crystal generation. The fact that he can potentially save you from a board wipe, or from he can board wipe in a very disadvantageous position. You will need to have some forwards out. So if you're in Fire, remember, and you play this guy, remember to keep some guys around so you can, you know, potentially top deck him, play him, and remove your forwards to remove their forwards. Other than that, just 5 CP 9k. The card's still really good with the potential of a board wipe. As I mentioned, there aren't many of those in this set. So that definitely helps his strength, and he's only at rare, so you're probably going to see this guy. Definitely a pretty good card to pick up. So we'll definitely give him a 7. Alright, and now we have another hero in Moro. Moro's only a 6k at 3 CP, but already having haste is really good, and he focuses on party attacking. So as long as you party attack, discarding 1 card and drawing 2, so this will help enable that entire deck that I was kind of mentioning before with the black waltzes, so you can kind of discard any of those black waltzes that you get with the extra filler, and then you can pitch them for Moro's effect. Not to mention, you're seeing more cards, and you're going to be drawing more stuff. Important thing for Moro, you do actually have to discard the card to be able to draw 2 cards. So don't try to, you know, attack with no cards in hand, hoping to draw cards. That's not going to work out for you. So other than that, card's pretty strong. It's not going to, you know, like win the game for you, but card advantage is obviously very, very helpful in limited formats. So Moro's definitely going to be up there, but I wouldn't put him, you know, on like the same level as like Soul or something. Definitely not as Squall. So we'll just give him a 7 as well. He's a little bit the size of Moro is definitely going to be one of the things that holds him back. All right, Bahamut, and now we get to all the summon cycles. So all the summons, as I mentioned, are common. There's only one per color, but they also have a 3 different color requirement to unlock like their full potential. Bahamut is one of the best though, in the fact that it's going to deal 9k even without the extra elements. So dealing 9k, obviously, from everything we've seen and everything we will see, it's going to kill everything, more or less. This card's very good. It's just going to be your premium generic. It's like common. You're going to have this card. It's going to be able to remove anything that's a problem. The fact that your opponent's going to get their awesome, bomb, and they're going to have their squall, and they're going to be ready to kill you, and you're just going to Bahamut it. This card's going to be phenomenal. I definitely want to play this guy in my deck. At common, you may actually end up with too many. I think the limit might be like 3 or so, but it definitely depends on some of the other stuff you get in your decks. But this guy is phenomenal. All right, moving on, and here's our crystal payoff in fire. Besides the soul, but Ramza is really, really strong if you can generate the crystals. This card is not worth playing if you can't generate the crystals. It's at just a 2 CP 5k. It's not going to be playable. So this card is a really big condition. It's either going to be phenomenal or it's going to do almost nothing for you. Definitely don't try to just play this in a deck when you only have 1 crystal generator. It's not going to work out for you more times than not. And I think this card's definitely going to be a big trap for a lot of people, but definitely hear me in the fact that if you have some crystal generation, this card's going to be great, like absolute killer. So definitely give Ramza a look if you have some of the crystal generation. Namely, the biggest crystal generation that this would work with is going to be Sarah Mobius. Charlotta will be fine, and probably Agrius. Delita is probably not going to be enough crystal generation for Ramza. It can, but you really are going to need things. Ideally, you want to be able to get both effects. So that would just make this guy an absolute powerhouse. But I'm going to rate this card assuming you're only going to have 1 crystal generator in your pool. However, if you are in ice, that's where, or in wind, ice has Devout and Mustadio and Agrius. Wind will have that Charlotta. Charlotta will be able to, fully charge Ramza as long as she gets both of those crystals. In those situations, it's going to be good, but I'm going to assume you only have like 1 crystal generator in your deck. This card's going to be pretty bad, honestly. So we're going to give it a little bit of a rough rating, but sometimes if you have everything, this card's probably a 7, or maybe an 8. All right, Lilty. So this is a cycle of backups for this set. They can return themselves, and then you can replay them at damage 5. They all have very good abilities at damage 5, but obviously they do nothing until damage 5. The ability to pick them back up and replay them at damage 5 is great. In a normal game, that's not so bad. In limited, damage 5 is terrifying. There's a lot of ways of kind of sneaking in. There's actually even direct damage in this set. So you do have to be a little bit careful on going to damage 5. So you don't just want to kind of pick that up. So we're just going to leave Lilty at just a standard playable. It's a fine backup. You're not going to be upset about it in your deck, but it's not something you're going to be like fishing for. All right, and that wraps up Fire. Oh, wait, no it doesn't. All right, we got a few more here. My bad. So we got Luna. He's in the rare slot. Luna, this is a card, I swear I've read this card like 400 times, but every time I forget that he has a little bit more text on him. Being able to give things haste is going, well actually, oh yeah, he can't really do that. Yeah, I guess he's not really going to be. He's just going to be able to do this second effect because the first effect's not going to happen too often. There are not that many Warriors of Lights in the set. It's just the pull them up. Alright, so it's just these guys. Luckily, the Onion Knight is still considered a Warrior Light, so that can help. You can get the haste synergy with the Onion Knight common, the Soul Hero, and then of course the light cards. But the second effect is obviously what's going to be triggering more often. 2 CP, 5k, once again standard fare, but combining this card with like a Jin and a pretty heavy fire deck, you can definitely pump out a lot of continuous damage. Being small though, this guy's not going to be quite as impactful as I think he will be in standard. I'm only going to give this guy like a little bit above average, so we'll just kind of leave him there. Alright, Luso, at the beginning of your turn, or attack phase, if you have received 5 damage, you shuffle your deck, you flip the top. If it's fire, you can play it. This guy's bad. This guy's so bad. Do not play this guy. He's actually just going to get a straight up 1. It's just... It's only going to hit a fire character unless you are able to generate an entire fire deck, right? And then you're going to get that effect consistently. If it's not a fire character, you're not even going to get it. At 6 CP, 5k, this card's just a big avoid. He's gonna be fun. He'd be cool. Be happy you pulled him, play him in some local decks, and try out some other decks. I cannot recommend playing this guy at all, though. Alright, Rain. When you enter the field, choose a forward. If the forward, if a forward you had broke this turn, you get to deal at 9k. 5 CP, 9k, and an EX. Important thing to remember if you're playing a bunch of these in your deck, at EX, you may want to... Oh, actually, I guess, yeah, it would just trigger. So, yeah, this guy's just pretty average. 5 CP, 9k, and there's going to be plenty of times where it doesn't trigger. You can try to swing in, like, your small guys in ahead of time to try to trigger the effect. But I wouldn't be over the moon about this guy. He's good, but he's not going to break the bank. But yeah, so as we see, fire's pretty okay. Obviously, Luso as a legend is gonna hold it down a bunch, but it's a pretty good element overall. All right, now we're gonna slide into Ice. Irwin, he's got the same effect as Zidane, where you can look at their hand and take 1 card from it. However, you do have to have 4 or more job soirees. Oh, actually, so he will actually get 2 cards. My apologies. The big thing about both of these effects, like, the first effect is fine enough by itself, which is definitely going to make this guy playable. The second effect is definitely going to be a little bit more relevant in Limited, because your opponent pitching their worst card in Limited, it's going to be much worse than what you could, generally expect to see. So Irwin's not going to be exceptional, but if you get both of those discards, it's going to be really good. Just being able to be very CP efficient, it essentially works out to about the same as the Onion Knight in what you're looking at, because as opposed to drawing 2, you're discarding 2. But it's more conditional upon your opponent not having cards so you can discard them. That being said, he's still an 8k. This is a pretty good card. We'll just give him a slight above average. Once again, this card will be much better in constructed, but in Limited, you don't want to put too much stock in discard abilities. All right, Agrius. So an important thing on Agrius is there are not that many cards that help trigger her ability, but we'll just go over those real quick. Oh, wait, what? Oh, are those actually a different element? Well, I may be even worse here. Oh, yes. Okay, they don't have it coded correctly. But yeah, so these will still trigger from category FFT characters, and it'll make Agrius a plus 3k. However, she will be one of the best crystal generators in the set as long as you can attack with her. I would definitely try to play her with Fire Ice. That way you can get the combination of attacking in, because otherwise she's going to be a 2 CP 5k. She's not going to be too impressive. But as long as you can trigger the extra buff, 2 CP 8k, pretty impressive. With the extra effect, helpful. And with the final effect of gaining crystals, very, very good. So we'll definitely give this... honestly, it'll probably be about the same spot as Erwin, because there's going to be a bunch of times where you're not going to have that category FFT character. As long as you can enable that, she's going to get in a lot. Another card that I think will be a little bit more impactful in Constructed than it is in Limited. Alright, and Vincent. This guy comes in, he'll keep a backup tapped for as long as he stays out. This is not going to be that big of an effect in Limited. I mean, you're going to be denying them resources. Maybe you'll get lucky and you'll stop down like one backup that's like really important. But most of the time, this is not going to be that big of an effect. And 3 CP 7k is just, it's not too scary. I can see this guy just being forgotten about a lot. The S ability is great. There's not another Vincent in the set. You're not really going to do too much with it. Obviously, you can do Vincent with the Cloud, as mentioned earlier. But overall, this guy's pretty bad. He's genuinely actually going to be just very below average. So let's leave him there. All right, Bard. This is that cycle for the damage 5. Your opponent will discard 2 cards. So as opposed to the Lilty, this card's pretty bad. He's not in quite a void territory because once again he's still gonna be a 2 CP backup, which is fine, but he's not really worth talking about. The discard effect is significantly worse than Lilty, but being at damage 5 is also just really hard at Limited when you're only going to damage 6. Alright, Cloud of Darkness. So as we've seen, there's not a tremendous amount of crystal generation, and there's actually more crystal payoff than there is crystal generation, really. So this first effect is very conditional upon what other stuff you have that generates crystals. If you can generate enough for that first effect, it's going to be pretty good. Otherwise, this is going to be a 3 CP 7 to 9k. It's not going to be too terribly impressive. Another thing, in Limited, the card that is removed from Cloud of Darkness is usually that might be their only one, or if it isn't, you know, it's probably not that impactful of a card. The effect's not going to really hold a ton of weight. It's great that you do have removal, but it being so conditional on having 2 crystals ahead of time, it's gonna actually put this card pretty average, despite being great removal. It's just conditional. The condition is just a little too tough to kind of work through. So we're just kind of give it an average rating. All right, Black Waltz. So this is our common Black Waltz. You're gonna see this guy the most. Same thing as the other one. When he is discarded, you get to deal 4k. However, when you use his effect, you can only choose dull forwards to deal 7k to. 7k is still great, though. It kind of fits in the exact same vein as the other Black Waltz, though, in the fact that this is going to work in certain decks. I do think a downside is that it's in ice. I do think fire so far is more of a stronger element on the whole. But it being a common, you're going to see more of these. So they can kind of synergize a little bit better with each other. So pros and cons. But other than that, he's pretty average. But we'll give him a slightly above average because of all the synergy he works with. Alright, and Shiva. This is our ice summon. As long as you get the extra effect, they discard a card. However, it just chooses a dull forward, breaks it. it's a little conditional upon them being dull. There are some forwards that aren't going to be dull. They're going to be, still really annoying to deal with. But it does just straight break them. It doesn't matter their cost, their power, toughness, nothing like that. So you can just use Shiva as not quite as good as Bahamut, because Bahamut you can throw out at any time, but obviously it's still removal. It's definitely going to knock it down a few pegs, because the extra effect is also not really going to be relevant. I mean, it might be, but we'll probably just still leave it as 7, because it is going to, if you ever do get the dull and the discard, and it's worthwhile, it's going to be great, but that's not always going to happen. Alright, Shulk. Alright, this card doesn't do a lot. It prevents pumps, and it prevents decreases, but there's not I mean, there's some of that going on in the set, but it's not very impactful. This card's definitely is going to get below average. It's going to be pack filler, right? Like, you're not happy about this in your deck, genuinely. Shantoto, a legend, also requires a crystal. However, even if it doesn't, the crystal effect is only from hand. Other than that, you can just pick up any character from your break zone. So even at 4 CP, pick up anything from your break zone. It's a pretty strong effect, because in limited, it will let you replay your bombs, etc. But if they only have one card in hand, it coming down at only 1 CP, absolutely phenomenal. This card's not... If only you could get both effects of being able to cast it cheap, pick up a character, and then also dull their entire board. But the potential utility of being able to dull their whole board and win the game right after, or the utility of picking up something and just playing it, this card's just about on the same level as Squall, in the sense that it's a really strong card. So you definitely gotta play this, even if you can't generate the crystals. If you can't generate the crystal at all ever, this card probably comes down to about a 7. But still, it's very, very efficient, and letting you get your selection on your cards is very good. But if you ever even generate 1 crystal in your deck, this card jumps right up to a 9. Alright, Scarlet. As we've seen, there's been a good amount of, like, incidental ping, which mostly was in fire. But that incidental ping can kill this character, and this character needs to stay around for a while. But in some of the matchups where they don't have quite as much removal, this card can really lock down your opponent. Being able to get all 3 of these effects for 1 CP a turn eventually will be really, really strong. At rare, you're going to see this card. If you're playing in this format and you know your opponent's on ice, hold some removal for this card. This card will be really, really annoying if it ramps up. Like, you will very quickly find yourself behind in the game. But it being easy to kill is a pretty big downside. But the upside's humongous. So we'll give it a 7. And let's keep going. Alright, Sarah, this will be your pre-release promo. You're not supposed to play with those. I know some places do anyways. If you do play with it, an important thing, or if you just open one, it being a hero, an important thing to remember, the Sarah enablers in the set, there's the Noelle in Lightning, there's a Chocobo in Wind, and most importantly, I think that Chocobo is probably the most important because it's a common. So you're going to see this. So if you have Sarah, keep an eye out for that Chocobo in Wind. There is also the Water Lightning. She's a hero. I do think the best synergy for Sarah would be Sarah and that Chocobo, though. And there's another reason why, and we'll get to it in just a second. Other than that, the controlling 2 ice characters is going to be pretty easy to do. So you're just going to be able to always discard for them. But then you do really want to be able to do the draw card to be able to enable her. As long as you can enable her, she's going to be pretty good. Once again, it's not going to be as impactful and limited to discard your opponent. or even just drawing one card, it's fine. You know, it's a free-ish body, but I would, the fact that you have to bend over backwards for both of the effects is just a little bit more conditional. The first effect's a little less bending over for, but sometimes you just don't have it. All right, Celeste. When it comes in, choose 2 backups, freeze them. It's fine. If you have it at the right time, it's going to work out. Other than that, it's just going to be, you know, your standard. It's a backup. It taps for CP. An important thing to note is she is not Category 6. She is only WAF. Alright, DG Sniper. Come in, choose a forward, dull it, and freeze it. And then pay the crystal. Once again, there's not a ton of crystal generation. Most of the time, this guy's only going to have that first effect. There's the only very repeatable crystal generation is Agrius, luckily in Ice. If you're able to enable Agrius a bunch and get in there, this guy will be good. Otherwise, this guy's just fine. He comes in, he does his one thing, and that's it. So he'll just get a nice standard average. YKT 63, this is one of the cards that helps punish people for going a little too all in. So if they have 1 or less cards in hand, you just break it forward. That's great. I don't think it's quite as good as the Crimson Hound, because the Crimson Hound is a little less conditional, and then it has everything else the same. But YKT is still a very good card. You know, 8K is going to kill most things in the set, but YKT definitely kills things as long as they don't have cards in hand, so that helps. Alright, Devout. This will just be your crystal generation. They do discard 1 card when you play this. As long as you can get the discard, the card's fine. Being able to make crystals is obviously important, but not in every deck. So if you don't have any reason to have crystals, I may not play this card at all. Alright, Babis. Another Ice backup. This guy has 2 effects, or you pick 2 of 4 effects, but actually you don't pick it. The most important part is your opponent picks it. They're going to be able to pick whatever is the least painful effect. Obviously all these effects are very good, but in Limited there are going to be plenty of times where you play this and there's going to be able to navigate around it fairly easily. I wouldn't put a ton of stock in this card. It reads really strong, but them being able to dodge the effects, and notably, if they don't meet the requirements, if they have no cards in hand and no forwards in play, they can still pick those abilities, and nothing happens. So definitely be a little careful about playing this card. There are times where it'll be good, but... Alright. And Biblos. So this is the heroic monster. If they discard card, it will dull and freeze. This helps all of your other discard. Being able to have some kind of extra payoff for making your opponent discard 1 card out of, you know, like a 3 or 4 card hand, is really, really big. And then obviously when it attacks, you're going to make sure that they'll keep their hand really low. Will make sure that they have to kind of play everything out. This guy enables a lot of what Ice wants to do. This is definitely a big card I would look out for. If you get it, it might be one of the reasons to play Ice. So I'm actually, even though he himself doesn't do that much, I mean he does a lot, but he really helps the entire element as a whole. So I would definitely give him a really big... He's a reason to go into Ice. Alright, Heavy Armored Soldier. This guy looks very generic. Well, actually, he looks really, really cool, but other than that, he seems kind of fairly generic. But getting any job standard unit is actually a lot better than you may think. Mostly because some of the best enablers of different strategies in this are standard units. Namely, that Chocobo I just mentioned with Sarah. Or, you know, Puppet Master, which we'll get to, or White Mage. These are all cards that can help enable some strategies. and they're all standard units. Now it can only grab standard unit forwards, a little bit of a downside. 5 CP, 8K, a little bit of a downside. EX is great, but this guy is definitely going to be a card that you want to play a bunch of if you can get the targets in your deck, because there's a lot of good standard units to just kind of be able to filter through and make sure you're getting them. So we'll give this guy a pretty good score. Alright, Mustadio. This guy's got back attack. When he comes in, it'll dull something. This guy's going to be good on the attack to be able to dull something down. Good when your opponent is, coming at you to save you from losing the game. And he does get that incidental crystal generation. It's kind of incidental, exactly like I said, though. So if this is your only crystal generation in a deck, I wouldn't put a lot of stock in it for some of the crystal cards. So once again, just be a little weary on that. But even forgetting everything about crystals, this card's very good. If you do ever get the discard and then you get to play him for free, this card's absolutely fantastic. Just being able to be an actual 0 CP forward is going to be very useful. So we'll give him, there we go. And Yunalesca. So this card also works, as mentioned before, with your Black Waltzes, to be able to just, ping cards from their hand and also ping on their board. Other than that, it'll help your YKT. It's not doing everything for you, and it's really just going to help. It's only going to be really good without those things when your opponent has one card in hand and you have a bunch, just to make sure they kind of stay down on resources or you're ahead in the game. You don't just want to fire this ability off, left and right all the time. That being said, just being able to have the option of that makes it a little bit better than just your average backup. So, all right, Lastwell. When he Job Knight enters, choose a character, dull it and freeze it. Very strong effect. At 2 CP, that's great. And then if they've attacked at the end of the turn, they discard card. This guy's very, very good and limited. There aren't a ton of knights, but there are some other knights in the set, namely Ramza, as mentioned, and Agrius is also another knight. You've got Delita as a knight, and I think 1 or 2 more others. But mostly you're going to want to do Fire Ice Knights with this guy. And that's really, Heretical Knight Garland is your only other option. But you're mainly, if you do get this guy, and you probably will because he's only a rare, a Fire Ice Knights deck is definitely going to be on the table as a quite a good option with both Ramza, and Delita. This does bring up the value of Ramza a little bit, but once again, you're going to want to have some crystals, and as we've seen, there's not just a ton of crystal generation. All right. Atomos. So now we move into Wind. This card's going to help encourage you to play out like your whole hand, because you're going to want to cast 2 things every turn, and then probably a third, sometimes to take advantage of the backups. That's a little scary sometimes in Limited, and also it's only going to be a 7K with the activate all your backups. I think this guy's going to be a constructed powerhouse. In Limited, he's not going to do as much for you. This guy's pretty much just going to be pretty average, I think, most of the time in Limited. There are going to be times where you're going to, finally build up in the late game. You're going to have 3 damage. You're going to play a 5 CP. You're going to attack, and you're going to play another 5 CP. And that's going to feel really, really broken. But there are going to be so many times where you play this card, and it does very little for you throughout the entirety of the game. Alright, Wool. Wool is very good. He does get reduced, and then he also helps protect your other 5 costs, and then he also draws cards. Obviously, the drawing card is the part that we care about the most. There aren't that many other 5 costs. I believe there are 18 total. for forwards, and then I think it goes up by like 3 or so for the backups. So that's what we're looking for the Wolves. Obviously, you kind of want to play. It brings all of their stock up. Bigger cards are way better in limited than they are in constructed. So even though you're overpaying for a card a 9K, it's still a 9K when all these 5Ks are running around. And the fact that he helps protect all of your other cards, this card's very, very good. He's not going to attack and win the game like Squall is, but he's going to more attrition win the game. If this guy sticks around, 2-3 turns, you're probably going to run away with the game. So we'll give him a fantastic rating. All right, Gargoyle, break a 5 or more. So even though I did just mention they're about 18 5 costs, there are so many cards in the set that are very scary at much lower costs. That makes Gargoyle a little bit worse than it would be in a lot of the other sets, because it's just the 5 CPs are not as generally threatening as they were in some of the other sets, because the 3s and the 4s have a lot of power in them as well. So this card's actually a little bit worse than they usually would be. I would actually only give this card probably a little bit below average, even though it's removal. If you're in wind, you're probably still wanting to play it because it's removal, but it's definitely not premium removal. Alright, Chocobo Chick. This guy untaps all your backups and then draws a card. It's a cantrip. It's cute. If you pay it with the 3 colors, you get the combat buff. Most of the time, you're just not going to want to play this. This doesn't matter in limited. The card filter is not that big. You're not really netting any value off of it. All you're doing is digging yourself closer a deck out. In constructed, this card can help do a bunch of other things. In limited here, it's not really doing much. I'm gonna give this guy a pretty bad rating, and just kind of move on. Charlotta, this is your wind crystal generation. When she comes in, get a crystal. When she dies, get a crystal, or you can pitch her to get a crystal. This card's only as good as your crystal payoffs. As we mentioned, your crystal payoffs are going to be like Cloud, Shantoto, the Ramza, and the Soul. Other than that, this card serves very, very little purpose. If you have those cards and are playing, an Ice or Fire Wind, right? Card's good. Otherwise, card's pretty bad. So I'm going to assume that you're not going to have the crystal deck. Most of these are assumed without the crystal deck, because not everybody's going to have those crystal payoffs or want to be in Fire Wind specifically for the crystal payoff. I think there are better fire decks for better synergies. So we're going to give Charlotta pretty below average. 4 CP for 6K is quite bad. Alright, Zidane. This card's very, very interesting. In limited, your cards are bad, as we've kind of gone over, but your opponent's cards could also be pretty bad. So you're going to steal cards that aren't going to be that relevant a lot of times, but you're playing towards multiple strategies all at once, right? You're gaining hand advantage, you're gaining card advantage, you're gaining deck advantage, and the fact that you're milling them out a little bit. This card is very, very good still, but it's not going to be quite as impactful. You won't always be able to clear the way for him to attack. If you want to play this guy, I think it'll be a lot of fun. I think he's not going to be quite as impactful as people would imagine him being in limited. But there's always going to be the high upside of you hit your opponent's bomb, and then you're just going to blow them out with their own card. And that's going to be a really bad feeling for your opponent. But we'll see on how that goes. But he's definitely worth playing if you're going in wind. I don't know if he's worth going into wind for, though. All right, Seiryu. This is our wind Shijin. Important thing to note is there was not an ice Shijin. I believe there's not a earth Shijin. No, there is an Earth one too. It's like Kira, whatever. But Seiryu, there's no Ice Shijin. So this guy searches for one of the other ones. Obviously, if you're playing, the Shijin deck, you just play these because they get played with any color. This one's way, way worse than Suzaku. So really, it's gonna this guy's just a pretty generic body. He's gonna help fill up the field, but he's not really gonna do much else. All right, Theodore. There are not a ton of Cat 4 characters overall in the set. There are enough to trigger his ability. However, you will need Cecil or Fusoya in your deck to be able to actually use his ability. Otherwise, it's going to be pretty meh. If you can trigger that ability and you happen to draw the Cecil and Fusoya at the same time, use it with the Rosa backup. That's going to be great. Like, Rosa you'll probably get, but the problem is you're going to need Cecil or Fusoya to be able to actually use the effect to break something. If you get the break, this card's very good. It'll probably be about a 7. Without the break, this card, which is what it's going to be most of the time, this card's actually going to get pretty below average because it's not really going to do anything. It's going to be a 4 CP, 8k, black belt. Alright, Cecil. Cool thing about Cecil is you can play the character of any color, and it can be character. So you can play monster, forward, backup, whatever. Then you also have the extra effect of protecting your guys, just making your opponent pay 2 extra. This guy is awesome. This guy is going to do a lot. He's not quite as strong as Wool is, but he definitely is going to be able to give you a little bit of security and also kind of give you a little bit of value as soon as you play him. Getting 2 cards for 1 is going to be very good. Alright, Selkie. You can break a character 4 or more. This is that backup damage 5 cycle. For Selkie, character cost 4 or more is a lot better than the Gargoyle, which is 5 or higher. Also, you can target backups, monsters with this. So Selkie is definitely significantly above average. We're actually going to move it into the great territory. Even though it's a damage 5 and that's a conditional timing, being able to pop it back up and drop this is a lot better. The flexibility of it is just really, really good. Actually, made a 3. Yeah. Still damage 5. Damage 5 and limited. Rough. Alright, King Tycoon. This guy is not limited by his damage, and he picks everything on your opponent's field and bounces it. This guy's great. This guy's going to set your opponent back a milestone. He's going to, break all stalemates. This guy's really, really strong. Selkie probably doesn't get a grade. Actually, I think Tycoon actually is going to get a 5 out of me. As a backup that just does so much. This card's strong. Alright, Chocobo is our standard unit that's Final Fantasy 13 that we mentioned. You can choose a character 2 or less and pull it back. That's a great effect. This is a good card. I would play Chocobos just in general. Being able to tutor it with the heavy armored soldier is phenomenal. Being able to enable the Sarah is absolutely phenomenal. Yeah, you want to play this guy. This guy's good. He doesn't impact the board too much, but he helps enable a lot of other stuff. You're going to pick up your other good cards from him. Alright, Fat Chocobo. Oh, no, I lied. Chocobo Sam first. So this guy will be able to tutor, obviously, Chocobo and the Fat Chocobo we're about to go over. Him being able to pump anything is great. Obviously, if you get this guy, he's a common with Chocobo. That's another reason why that Chocobo is so strong. Turning that 6k into a 9k and limited is going to be insane. So Chocobo Sam going to help you out a lot. So he's actually going to get a pretty good strategy here, or a pretty good number from me here with 4. That's a great strategy of just Chocobo Sam into Chocobo early on in the game. Gonna put a lot of pressure on your opponent. Alright, Fat Chocobo. Can't attack or block. you can get a wind card from the top of your deck. So this is fairly similar to Luso, but it's a lot less conditional, right? You don't have to have the damage. You don't have to be only a 5k for 6 CP. He's only 4 CP. So he's fairly similar to Luso, though, in the fact that he can't attack or block. This is big red flag. That's going to hurt you a lot in some games. So just having him out and him not doing anything other than potentially netting you value is a big thing to worry about. I would still think about playing this guy if you're playing a lot of wind, but I think more times than not you're going to get really disappointed at what you get out of Fat Chocobo, and you're not really going to be happy about it. So I'd say most of the time you're going to be pretty below average. Alright, we got our ninja here. You can remove the top 2 cards of your deck from the game and deal something 2k. You only want to use this in combination with other things to guarantee. I like the fact that it can help guarantee that kill on something. This card's not very good by itself. In a vacuum you would want most other cards, but being able to have the option. Definitely be scared about using this ability too many times. You will deck out quickly. 2 extra cards is a lot and adds up quick. But more or less, this guy's a little bit below average. Alright, Fina. So the first thing about Fina is you're probably not using this second effect unless you get 4 wind backups. It's a little unlikely. Most of the time she's just not going to be able to be targeted, be that classic ranger effect. You can still target her, like you can, but your opponent cannot. So important thing to remember is you can give her any kind of pump or anything like that, like with the Chocobo Sam. But she's not too impactful. She's just a standard card, just a little harder to target. So she'll just get an average rating. Alright. Pesciota, I think. This guy is adorable. Has a awesome hat. Is fancy. And he activates all of your soiree members. We're going to get to it in just a second, but we got some more soiree members in wind, which is great. Obviously, we only had Irwin in ice. Pesciota, though, I think wind will be one of your main elements if you're looking at the soiree decks. So Pesciota will help fit into that, but he won't. I mean, this is not an exceptionally strong effect in limited. You may not have something to follow it up with, etc. So this guy's actually is going to be fairly generic. Obviously, you're going to want to play him with your other soiree members, but most of the time he's just pretty average. Alright, and Madam M. So you get to look at the top 4, add a wind character. Most of the time, as long as you're playing wind, you will find a hit, but I would still be a little worried on your wind count when playing this card. If you're paying 4 CP and you don't get any card back, this is definitely going to be a pretty big miss. But as is, it's definitely playable. It doesn't really hurt you too much being an EX. Card's pretty good. Alright, Yuri. This card is a little opposite of Madam M. This card's very specific. You have to hit a wind character of cost 3. And so you can add... you can always add one of the cards to your hand. So this card is effectively always going to be, a 3 CP 7k. But the real reason you want to play this card is being able to get the extra effect. You're not going to trigger that extra effect that often. This guy's just going to be very average most of the time. 3 CP, 7k, no effect, has a slight upside. Actually, he may just be a little bit below average. Alright, Lexa, our soiree member. I really like her staff. It's really fancy. But she'll help protect your big boss monster with Madame Adele, which we'll get to in Earth. But she also pumps your guys by 1k. The pump isn't huge, but every little bit counts in limited. If you're playing soiree, she's great. Otherwise, she's 2 CP backup. Alright, and Rosa. Rosa's great in the fact that she can help enable your Theodore and Cecil. However, this is a hero, and this is a hero, I believe. Actually, just double checking. Theodore, he's... Yeah, they're both heroes. Oh, hero and legend, actually. Yeah, hero and legend. So you're not going to see them that often. Most of the time, this backup's not going to do much. 2 CP, 2K, that's it. Or 2 CP, backup. Alrighty. Moving on to Earth. Dark Knight. Important thing about Dark Knight is if you are at damage 3, this guy is actually just free. You can play him out. The pump effect is phenomenal. This is going to be one of those turnaround effects, and your opponent's going to be really scared to start dealing damage to you, because when you're at 3 or 4 damage and you're able to pump your guy by 3 or 4k, this card's going to be really, really oppressive and limited, because that's going to take their 5k to their 9k, and they're going to trade their 2 CP into your 5 CP guy. It's going to feel really bad. So this is definitely going to get a pretty good rating, and sometimes you can get it out for free. Even if you pay the full price for this card, it's very good. Alright, Amber. This is our soiree member that helps tutor all the other soiree members. Great part about her is she doesn't care about the color. So you can use Amber to go get Lexa. This is probably where you want to have your base in, because there are 2 in Wind, and then there are a few in Earth. So those are the highest density of your soirees. So if you are building soiree, remember Earth Wind. You can try to fit it in somewhere else, but definitely Earth is where you're going to want to be. And Amber is part of the glue that helps keep all that together by guaranteeing you get your soiree members online as fast as possible. So she's definitely essential to that strategy. Alright, and Heretical Knight Garland. He gives another guy plus 4k and Brave. Crazy thing about this card is this is only a rare. This is a phenomenal ability. I don't know why Heretical Knight Garlands are always really good and limited. But this one and one of the older Opus ones, absolutely phenomenal. This card's really, really strong in limited. Also being able to make it so he can't be broken, being brave, giving something else plus 4k. This guy does a lot at a rare slot. So you're going to see him. He's going to be good. We're going to give him a good rating. Alright, Aerith. All your other forwards gain plus 2k. If she dies, she'll come back in 3 turns. The plus 2k to your board is enough of a reason to run this card. Being able to come back in limited and potentially trade with something now and later is absolutely phenomenal. Obviously, she doesn't pump herself, but you can do a lot with this Aerith. So we're definitely going to give her very good rating. Plus 2k to your board alone is just very, very powerful and limited. All right, Aiko, break her, deal 10k. She's 3 CP. Downside, obvious 3 CP, but pretty unconditional removal is really useful. Obviously, you lose your backup, but this is a pretty great effect for a backup. So we're definitely going to give it a little bit above some of... Actually, yeah, I think we gotta give it a 4. All right. Ciaran. For every backup, he's plus 1k. I think this guy starts out a little too small to really get his full value. Most of the time, let's say you get 3, he's going to be a 2 CP, 7k, but that's not until you eventually get there. I think this card's, a little bit above average, maybe, but most of the time, he's just going to be pretty generic. All right, Kieran. Obviously, this is your big boss monster for the Shijin deck. This guy is obviously something you want to play if you're playing that deck, because he pumps all of them. It makes all of their values go up pretty significantly. Going from 7 to 8K is way, way big for limited. But he also has a chance of just playing them for free. There is a good number of 4CP forwards that are very good to play, and he can play any of them. So this card's definitely worthwhile. I would keep in mind the 4CPs that you do have in your deck if you play this guy, but this guy's definitely worth playing. An important thing to note, he does not hit like 3CP, 2CP. He cannot play those. It's only 4CP. So, but he is a big boss monster. You definitely want him in your deck. He can be a reason to have that earth base. All right, Gladiator. He will come in and give all of your forwards plus 10k and Brave. Obviously, getting to damage 5 is a little scary. Once again, still like all of the others. But this effect kind of wins the game as long as you have any given number of forwards on the board. And you can just repeat this every single turn. This guy's actually pretty cracked. He's gonna do a lot for you. So we'll give him a 4 and keep going. Alright, Beastmaster. Reveal the top 5 of your deck, add 1 monster. There are 2 monsters in every color. Some are commons, some are not. This effect's gonna miss a lot. This effect's... If it hits, it's gonna be okay, but it's gonna miss a lot. So I'd be a little scared on running this. You probably want at least 4 to 5 monsters in your deck, and 4 or 5 monsters in your deck means you're not playing that many forwards if you're still playing some summons. So I'd be a little scared to play this guy. I'm gonna give him a little bit below average. Alright, Benjamin. A lot of people don't even know what game this guy's from, but cool little dude. Plus 1k power, brave at damage 3, and break a dull character. 5 CP, 9k. Going to 10k and getting the brave is going to be really big, but it's not anything to completely write home about. Damage 5, once again, really scary. Don't want to be there. And if it hasn't been obvious, when you're playing in limited, you want to be a little careful about putting your opponent to damage 5 in this set especially. Damage 3 and 5 are the main thresholds, and as we obviously see it here for Benjamin. But he'll just be a little bit above average. He's going to be a big beater, but not much more than that. Alright, Cactuar, fairly unconditional break, but you do take a point of damage. It's good. Taking the point of damage is bad and limited. When you're taking a 6 to your life, it's a little harder. You don't have as much control over the whole game, but the unconditional break's great. It's obviously not as good as like Shiva or the Bahamut, or just a bunch of obviously the wind summon's pretty weak with Chocobo Chick. So it's not as weak as Chocobo Chick, but this guy's actually a little bit below average in my opinion. Even though it is removal and you're probably going to need to play it, it definitely brings down the value of Earth. Actually, we'll still give it 5, yeah. Alright, Shinju, we got Matthew Okamoto's favorite character card in the set. There are 2 really good reasons to play this card. It helps all of your soiree members be cast with any color, and it lets them form parties. Parties not as much relevant, but definitely being able to cast them with any color. This is going to be the card you're going to want to tutor with Amber a lot of times, just to be able to play all of your other soiree members, because you're probably only going to get 1 of these. You might get a few Ambers. Use your Amber, tutor this, help turn on the rest of your deck to be able to actually be played. That will definitely help your soiree members. Obviously, you want to play them together. And, yep, that's about all you can say there. Alright, Sophie. This card is strong. Being able to be removal while also developing your board is a great effect. So obviously, if she's out and you play a 5 CP forward or character, you get to essentially break something because you're gonna deal 10k to another forward. This is gonna be very good. This is just another big bomb, and it's a rare. Absolutely surprising that this card's a rare, but yeah, this card's you're gonna see it, and it's going to be very impactful. All right, Terra. Category 6 backups. We can stop reading that line of text. There are no Category 6 backups. The only one that we thought there would be Celeste, and she's not Category 6. So fire, ice, water. Depends on which element you're mixing in with. The best element to mix with Terra, obviously, for Terra herself, would be water. I'll just assume, let's assume like we gain one of these. We're never going to get probably the final effect. Please try not to go for that. It's probably only going to hurt you. But this card's perfectly fine as long as you can take advantage of one of these effects. Assuming you're taking advantage of the water effect, it's quite good. Just 1 CP to be able to dull anything. You can do this on their turn. You can do this on your turn. It's actually a really, really strong effect. Being able to tap down like their whole board. Keep in mind, you can't like pitch a water card and use this effect twice. You would only be able to use it once. But even still, say you have, only earth and water in your deck, and you have 2 water backups. It means 2 forwards every single turn are tapped down on your opponent's side, or you could even start going after their backups. This card's very, very strong. All right, Demonolith. He's a punch effect, not the fight. He only deals the one-sided damage, and then he has the break effect. Card's very good. Hecaton's good, but this is upside on Hecaton. It's conditional on how good your forward is and how big your board is. There are lots and lots of big forwards, as we've seen in Earth. And even Sophie, who's not big, who can still deal 10k. So definitely Demonolith, very good. About the same quality as like not quite as good as the Crimson Hound and like some other removal, but it's definitely some premium removal. All right, Hades. This is our hero monster. Every turn you can filter backups. This is very useful and limited. Once you've kind of gotten to a backup stalemate, you just want to draw your bomb and win the game. This guy helps you do that. Then, also, when you're at damage 3, he can attack. And we've seen, especially if you're in fire, there's lots of chip in fire. There's not much chip. We only saw 1-2 cards in wind that really does it. And there's not too terribly much in ice either. So it's mainly going to be like fire, earth, or I think there's a little bit over here. We'll get to that. But yeah, Hades, definitely pretty good in the fire earth, but in just earth by itself, it's not quite as potent. So this guy will get about a 6. If you're in fire earth and you have a lot of ping, I think his stock goes up to about a 7 or 8. All right, Madame Adele, this is your boss monster. This is going to be one of your big reasons why you'll want to play Soiree. Obviously, you would want to have Amber and Shinju in your deck if you can play this. Hopefully you get all 3 of those if you open this card. And then you just kind of build the deck based on that earth element. In drafts, a big thing to keep in mind, a lot of people are probably going to go for earth, so be careful on like trying to go too hard into earth, because they're going to be stealing a lot of your other earth cards. But yeah, this card's pretty good. It'll just resurrect one of them. Yeah, and then it just gives them all these extra effects. She's good. She's good, but only as good as how many other Soiree members you have. And honestly, she's not even quite as impactful as some of the others. Being able to resurrect, I mean, it depends on how good the one you resurrect is. If you're only resurrecting a backup, it's pretty whatever. If you're resurrecting, like, Irwin, it gets a lot better. Alright, so we'll give her, slightly above. Actually, I think she'll just get a 6. Alright, moving on. Mira. Choose monster in the break zone. Resummon them, and then when a monster breaks, deal something 2k. So this is some of that incidental damage. This is going to be something that helps combo with Hades, with, you know, your Demonoliths and your Crimson Hounds and etc. So the card's actually very good. It will take you usually 2-3 damage to be able to play any of your monsters. So she's not going to be great at the start of the game, but definitely a strong card to play with. So give her same as Madame Adele. All right, Montleonis. So this guy has the cool ability of probably having the best S in the set, and also being able to protect himself, reducing something as 0. This guy is strong. If you have 2 of him, this guy's super strong. But just the first effect alone, 4 CP, 9k, this is like, and just being able to negate stuff, like, holy cow, this guy's a big boy. And yeah, he's gonna come in swinging, and this guy's gonna be really, really annoying to deal with. Alright, Lael. This guy's a little weird. The fact that he'll force you to attack and your opponent to attack and block. But he can pump himself. Obviously, the pump doesn't give you a very good rate. Discarding a full card just for, you know, 1k is not humongous. However, he's a very interesting effect in the fact that you can force the battle. Just be careful when you do play it that you don't force the battle back on yourself in a bad way. But this card definitely can be very, very useful. Alright, and the final Earth card is Mr. Leslie, Gatekeeper here. In an Earth deck, or like depending on how heavy Earth is played, he could be pretty weak. Now this does require you to choose 2 forwards specifically, so if you only have 1 forward, his effect won't go off. Additionally, they have to be of not Earth, so you could have like 1 Earth and 1, you know, something else, and keep this guy in play on your side of the field for a while before you want to give him up. Be careful about just handing this to your opponent. If you hand this to your opponent and they don't have forwards, you turn on almost all of the summons in the set by giving them that access to that extra color if they're not in Earth. Just in general, I'd be really worried about using this card, because there are lots of scenarios where you can misplay with this card. For that reason, I honestly am going to say avoid this guy, but he definitely can be removable. There are going to be times you want this guy, but there are going to be a lot of times where you don't. I think there are even times where good players will very much misplay with this card. It could potentially cost them the game. So I'd be a little scared to play this, especially with how good I think Earth is in the set, and how much I think people will end up playing Earth. It will make this card quite bad a lot of times. Alright, moving on to Lightning. So we have our Assassin here. Put Assassin in the break zone. Find something that deal 8k, or that just came in, deal at 8k. It's good. Very conditional. Needs to happen the turn it happened. It's kind of rough. So we're just kind of keep going. Ixion, minus 8k. This is great because it's reduction, so you can you know, still kill something. You don't lose your guy, even if it's bigger. And then all their forwards can lose 2k. It's a good effect too. It's not. It's almost at the same level as Bahamut. I would say its extra color effect is better than Bahamut's, but its removal is obviously a little weaker. So, I'm still gonna go ahead and rate it about the same as Bahamut. Maybe yeah, give it a 7. All right, Puppet Master. This guy, as mentioned before, you may discard cards. This helps trigger some of your Black Waltz effects. If you don't have like a Black Waltz already in play, you can use this as just some incidental damage. And then you can pick up any character in your break zone. So you could use this to pitch a Black Waltz, to pick back up a Black Waltz, to pitch a Black Waltz. That's really big. This guy's very useful in that sense, and as mentioned before, he's a standard unit. He can be tutored by the heavy armor. That's some really good synergy. I really like this card. Black Waltz 3, here's your legend of the set. The set of Black Waltzes, that is. He's also obviously in the same color as the Puppet Master and Vivi, so this helps him a lot. And when he dies, you get 2 Black Waltzes back. This guy helps the whole deck, obviously. I do think there's a just Fire Ice, you're just playing your common and rare Black Waltzes, but if you get this guy, you either probably splash. I think one of those other colors should be splash, and you probably just splash the Black Waltzes, and you want to have this guy as one of your main colors. Obviously, he's just strong. Breaking 3 or less is very good because we've kind of gone over, there are lots of very good small creatures in the set, as well as, there's stuff at 2, 3, 4, and 5. I would say 3 and 4 and 5 have a lot more. Not as much at 2, but all right, Zach. Oh, I didn't even give him a rating. All right, Zach. If you have another 7, with Zach, he gets reduced by 2. Obviously, the big thing with him is like Cloud, since it's a backup. But you do also have Shulk and Scarlet over here as well, and Vincent. All that helps his stock a little bit. But you can play a 7. The second part is not very relevant. And it's also going to, I guess the dealing damage isn't really going to happen too much. He's really just, I think the best spot personally for him is going to be in Fire Lightning, and you're going to just have the Cloud, and you're going to ignore the rest of his text. Because you're going to have this category 7 character in your hand for that second part. It's very conditional. So I almost look at him as like a 3 CP 9k conditional. As a hero, that's a little underwhelming, but he's still a little bit nice, but he's really just a big stat stick. I'm not blown away by this card. All right, Seymour. Only 1 summon in every color, as mentioned, so 3 summons in your break zone be a little hard to do sometimes. Depends on how heavily invested you are into summons. I would want bare minimum probably 6 to 7 summons to play this card, though. And I don't think it's worth stretching on some of the other summons to try to play this card. I think this effect is a little bit of a trap because it's going to not work, and there's a good amount of other removal in the set, depending on the colors you get. So, and this last effect, I mean, obviously, it would be a very, very late game effect, but it also probably could win the game. But it's very conditional upon having 6 summons in your break zone. As I mentioned, I don't even see people having 6 summons, 7 summons too often in their decks, even though they are commons, because like your win summons are pretty unplayable, etc. I would just say this guy's a little bit of a trap, so just be a little scared on using him. Obviously, if you have enough good summons, run this guy. If you're in Fire Lightning, you got 3 Ixions and 4 Bahamut's, this guy's gonna be a house. Alright, Chadley. He helps pick back up your forwards as the game goes. I like that recursion in Limited. I like it in Standard, but oh, I accidentally had Ixion here. Oops. It's gonna be nice to be able to pick back up, stuff that you've thrown away as the game progresses, getting back up your specific things. However, paying 4 up front is a little rough for this guy. It kind of balances everything out on him, but paying 4 early on is a little rough. But I do think this card's worth just playing. He's going to be a little bit above average. Alright, Noel. Choose 2 forwards, opponent control, dull them. Standard. Big thing is he's 13. He triggers your Sarah. And then dulling all of their forwards. This guy's, that effect is a big haymaker effect of, I'm just going to dull all your forwards close to the end of your turn, and then come back to me, I'm going to win the game. That's a strong effect to have in limited. So he's actually going to get probably yeah, give him a nice 7. All right, Noctis. There's no other 15 character in the set, so he's not getting the cost reduction. Choose a forward other than Noctis, dull it. It's fine. And then the last effect, once again, not gonna happen. Noctis is just pretty mediocre. He's kind of a big stat stick, kind of like Zach, except you're not gonna get the discount, but you're going to get the dull. He's gonna be like actually he's probably a little worse. I think Zach's a little bit better as long as you're in Fire Lightning Zach. All right, Palmer. Look at the top 4, add 2, the rest in the breakdown. Be careful using this card. You know, milling 4 is rough, but or going through 4 cards in your deck, but drawing 2 is very good. This is pretty useful backup. I mean, it's always just a 2 CP backup, worst case scenario. Vivi, Black Mage. Big thing to remember, this guy's a Black Mage. Triggers all of your other Black Waltzes. And then if you happen to start like actually playing your Black Mages, your other Black Waltzes out, like if you can get this guy to deal 8 tap and deal 8k, like ooh, Vivi's using to be a wrecking ball coming through your opponent's board, so definitely like him. Alright, Byakko. When he comes in, searches just like all the others. When he attacks, choose a forward, dull it. This is much better than the wind one, and it's about on the same level as Suzaku, but I think it's actually a little bit better. Just being able to clear out something on the attack, because it's a recurring effect rather than just getting that single kill. Alright, Hyo, as long as you can, as long as you're in Lightning, you want to play this guy, and if you're in Lightning, you can use his effect. This guy's great. This guy's really strong. Being able to be a 10k dealing 2 points of damage is just for the little amount of investment that you get on this guy. This guy just looks cool. You should play him because he looks cool. All right, Spectral Keeper. At the beginning of your attack phase, you get to dull something every turn. As far as the passive effects on monsters go, Spectral Keeper is one of the best. Being able to just unconditionally dull something. However, when it attacks, you get to dull another thing. Also another great effect. Honestly, Lightning may have a redundancy in this dull effect, but that just means you're turning your guys sideways, and theirs are going to be sideways on the block. So it's a little rough. Oh, whoops. There we go. Move that over some. That's going to be a little rough for people to deal with. I would definitely really like to see Spectral Keeper in my pool. Meryl, this is your Lightning Soiree member. Can have haste. And then other than that, it just breaks. If you have 4 is going to be a little hard to do. And having haste is a little pretty easy to do. But most of the time, this card's going to be a little generic. So I'm just going to give it a 6. If you're not in Soiree, this card's way worse than a 6, though. Y'shtola, and then a bunch of text that doesn't matter. Because I don't believe there are any other Scions Leviathan in this set, unless I've lapsed them from my memory. If you somehow get 2 of this S ability is amazing, but I don't see that happening too often. Most of the time, it's gonna be 3 CP 7k. Card's pretty underwhelming. Yuke, the damage 5 backup. Choose a forward 5 or less. So this is the opposite of the gargoyle effect. So 5 or less is going to hit almost every single thing in the set. This is great. So it's just pretty unconditional removal, except for the fact that you have to be at damage 5. Obviously, the damage 5 going to hurt you pretty significantly. We'll just bring it back down to about yeah, probably a 3. All right. Lon, choose a monster in your break zone. You can remove it and then every turn he gets to dull something, and he'll be a 9k. This guy's great, as long as you get that effect. Without the effect, he's pretty bad. But with all of the other monsters, the break monsters being at common rarity, you're going to see them. You're going to be able to trigger this guy. He's very good. He's only a rare. I'm very happy about this card. Larva. Choose forward 3 or less, break it. 3 or less being its only thing it does is a little specific. There's still plenty of good targets, but I am not like, for a card that only is removal being that specific, not being a forward. I'm gonna give it a pretty mediocre rating. All right, Reeve. Choose forward 2 or less and play it, and then he doesn't untap. There are plenty of good 2 costs, but it depends on how many you have. The fact that he doesn't untap, you're never going to get a backup. He's not as impactful in here. He's definitely playable. I would probably have at least 3 good 2 CP backups before I think about playing this guy. But other than that, I wouldn't... like, he's nothing to write home about, but you don't have to avoid him. And Lon's sister, Rain. We got Mirage Keeper. She has the same kind of thing, remove a monster, and then she gives stuff haste every turn. She's just about on the same power level as Lon. Maybe better, maybe worse. I'm going to go ahead and just rate them the same. Like, they both are very good cards. All right, and we're jumping into the final element here before we dive into the extra cards. Andrea Rhodia. So there are some other category 7 characters, but there's not a ton. Being able to turn off that effect, though, is going to be great. Obviously, fire, water, being able to essentially dunk one of their forwards is a little bit better. But he's only a 3k. Only 1 CP, but still only a 3k. This card's not going to be too impactful. Unless you're in fire, water, I wouldn't be crazy about playing this card. And yeah, I'm not gonna, I don't think I'm going to be ecstatic over trying to work over the Cloud Rhodia synergy. So let's give him a pretty, actually probably give him a 3. All right, Easel. Search for a forward of the same cost that you discard. I think this is gonna be a little hard to do. You're gonna have to pitch like 2 CPs, or a 2 CP and a 3 CP to be able to go get your 5 CP. Just be careful when playing this card. I can see a lot of hands where it just ends up going for something. You're gonna have to memorize a lot of your deck, and limited, that's really rough. Definitely like sort out your cards, remember what's where, if you are gonna play this card. But honestly, I'm gonna lead towards just telling people to avoid this. If you feel very confident with using that effect successfully, I still wouldn't give this a very high rating. Obviously, if you have a very specific bomb, and you can fill your deck with enough other CPs to guarantee tutoring it, that's helpful. But I can see more misses than hits with this card. Kamari. If a forward is dealt damage by summoner ability, it becomes 0 instead. Very helpful for protecting your, big forwards. Other than that, 2 CP backup, great card. Yep. All right. Kyrie, look at your opponent's hand and the top 2 cards of your deck, and you can return them to the top or bottom. Good card filter, is an EX, looks at your opponent's stuff. She's useful. Knowledge is really helpful in limited, and being able to set up like your early draws, filter out some bad stuff, make sure you're drawing your good stuff. Also, she has a cool hat. All right, Clavat. The damage 5 backup for water. When you do so, draw 2 cards. This is so much worse than so many of the other, damage 5. For having to be on damage 5, 2 cards is pretty rough. And actually, after thinking about it, I probably need to give Lilty a little bit more credit for being able to actually remove something. And we'll slide back over here. Alright, yeah, so this is just going to be a pretty bad effect for that. But worst case scenario, 2 CP back up that you can return. Alright, Genbu. Now we finally, after talking about a bunch of backups, we get back to our forwards. And this is our final Shijin. He tutors any of the others and reduces damage. It's not very impactful. It's about as impactful as the wind one was with Seiryu. So we'll give him the same rating. Corsair, play it into break zone, draw a card. There's the field, draw 2, then pitch 1. It's fine. For our final backup in water, it's fine. It's a lot of card filter all in one card, but it doesn't really impact anything. You can play a bunch of them. I do worry about drawing too many cards. Water has a tendency of doing that and stalling out with a bunch of forwards that aren't super impactful. So definitely be a little worried about that, but this card's not avoided. Alright, Sahagin, here's our common monster. We get to just return something and get a little bit of card filter. It's fine. You don't want to just hand them back their cards too often in limited, because replaying it's not that big of a deal. You lose a little bit of tempo, but more often than not, board states stall, and this doesn't fully break a stall. It delays it for a turn. So this card's pretty mediocre. Actually, wait, drop it down. Alright, White Mage. This guy helps enable all of those other discard effects. However, it only triggers on your opponent's turn, so this can be a little bit more difficult to trigger. Like, you would have to have the Black Waltz actually in play, or, do something, specific on your opponent's turn. And even worse than that, it's in water, so you're not really going to combo that with a lot of stuff. I think this card's really good if you can take advantage of it. I do think you're going to have to bend over backwards a little bit to take advantage of it. When it works, it's going to work really well, but I think there are going to be a lot of times where it doesn't work. Another important thing is this is tutorable with the heavy armor knight from Ice. Sarah Mobius. This card's great. This card's going to be great in standard, and it's going to be really great in limited. It's going to filter you through your backups. It's the most reliable crystal generation in the set. Just in play it, you definitely gain 1. And then it gives you a payoff for all of your future ones. But it's more of just... Actually, I'll probably drop it down. Being able to just always have that negation and helping enable all of the other crystal stuff is really, really helpful. Keep in mind, you're going to want this with like Ramza. So you can play like Fire Water, get the Ramza, get a few Sarah Mobiuses, and this can be a pretty good strategy to work together. Or you can even use this with like your Ice and with Agrius, obviously, and trigger this effect every turn. Obviously, Agrius a hero. This is also a hero. You're not going to see it too often, but this card is pretty good. Alright. Titus. Here's our legend. So for him, this card's very good. He's just good. He's going to force a lot of pressure out of your opponent. The big thing with him, though, you're going to want to play a pretty aggressive deck. I think you're going to want to be in, like, Water Lightning, or, something else. You're really going to want to put the pressure on your opponent. The damage that he's dealing doesn't matter unless it's, really threatening your opponent to the point where they have to remove him. If they ever remove him, you've gained insane value, though. So when he actually does work, he works really, really well. Tross. He helps give you some extra benefit for when you return stuff, but I don't think this effect's very good. He's one of the for the passive effect, he's one of the weakest on that front half, but on the back half, even though it's only bouncing stuff, being able to bounce something every turn he attacks is going to be very, very useful. So he's still going to get a pretty good rating, even though that first effect's not going to be that great. Also only a 2 CP monster, so he is a little cheaper than. Actually, they may all be. I think Biblos was 3, but can't remember. All right. Moving on. Fiona. When it enters the field, draw a card chosen by your opponent's summoner ability. Put it on the top of its owner's deck. It's a 2 CP 8K that kind of hides away. It's very similar to a magic card like Norn the Weary, where it just kind of hides away. You're going to have this card over and over, and then it's EX, so it'll be on top of your deck if they're attacking. This card's definitely very interesting. I don't think it's knocking anybody's socks off, but it's definitely significantly above average. Mostly just stat stick though, so yeah, give it a 6. Alright, Fusoya, he's a hero. You gain the effects based on the elements other than water. And you go from the bottom up, from top to bottom, correction. So you'll probably just draw one card. If you can do the second, it's okay. But most of the time in limited, this guy's gonna be pretty darn weak. He's just gonna be an 8K for 3, which is pretty whatever. It's actually just worse than Fiona. If you can enable that final, or the second last effect, it would help a lot, but it's gonna be a little hard to do. So he's most of the time gonna be pretty. Actually, he's gonna be pretty underwhelming. All right, Furion. Put into the field, break zone. When he kills something, you get to draw 2 cards. Your opponent's mostly not going to let this happen. Obviously, you can use this in combination with like Monolith. I don't think there's anything else that really enables that, but it's a very, very interesting card. 5 CP 9K that can eventually maybe draw you 2 cards, especially if you pressure them with attacks and stuff. Card can be very useful. Oh. Alright, Vesvia. Here's your Water Soiree member. If you have 2 or more, draw a card. Otherwise, you get 2 cards if you have 4 Soiree members. The upside of getting 2 cards would be very, very good, but the fact that you have to really bend over backwards for this card is a little rough. It is still a Soiree member. You're going to want to play it in that deck. You're not really going to want to play it in any other deck. But yeah, if you're in the right deck, it's going to be fine. Otherwise, it's just going to be whatever. We'll just give it a 5. It doesn't impact the board too much. Alright, Marsh. You get to go get a character 2 or less played into play, and then if you have 3 or more category TA, you get to draw. So for our category TA, category. Yeah, so there are a few, and there's only the 1 in water. Obviously, if you, or the 2 in water, 1 forward. If you can get a few extra TA category characters, that would be great. But you're never getting the final effect, probably, where you're drawing 2 instead. At just putting out a single 2 CP card, he's pretty underwhelming. For 6 CP and 7K, he's playable, but he's not. He's gonna be a pretty heavy build around, and that can be a little rough and limited. So I'll give him a little bit above average, but not much. All right, and then we have Maya. I think this card's a little bit of a trap, so you're not going to gain the effect on any of the summons in this set if you use her ability, but it does reduce them to 1 CP. And I mean, it can definitely be useful unless you're playing that water lightning summon heavy deck. I would not play this card. It's probably going to be a trap most of the time. just gaining CP advantage is not as important as being able to attack and block on a card. And if this is eating up a card that you're playing, it's going to take a while before it nets back the value, and it's going to be hard to play a summon focused deck in limited. Alright, and lightning. This is another punishment for people going a little too wide. So if they have more forwards in play than you, then lightning will be able to remove one of them. Card's very useful. Keep in mind, lightning obviously counts herself, so they have to have more than you after you play the lightning. So if they have 2 and you have nothing, you can play lightning. But just being able to fairly unconditionally remove a forward, very, very useful. 3 CP, 7k, other than that, it's just pretty standard fare. Alright, Leviathan. Choose one forward, 5 or less, play it at the bottom. If you get the extra effect, you get a loot. Leviathan's very good. This is a very, very good effect. Just like Bahamut, it's pretty... I mean, this is 90% of the time going to be unconditional removal in this set. This is a great, great summon. Really helps out the color a lot. Alright, Leo. Probably don't play this card. This card's probably a trap, kind of like Luso. You can try. In limited, this is gonna be a stretch to play this card. If you can figure out it to work, right? Like, if somebody puts this in their limited deck and they win limited by playing this card every single game, yeah, send me some pictures of it, because I would be happy to see that happen. Most of the time, I'm just gonna say, just don't even bother. Just you're not gonna get there. All right, we'll move on to the last little bit of the set, Warrior of Light. There are a few other Warriors of Lights in the set, and this will help pump them all. Can't be broken. Most of the time, this card's not going to be that impactful, right? The pump is not that big, and it's on very few things. And then it's just a 2 CP, 5k. It's a legend. I'm not even going to play this too often in my fire decks, which will have the most amount of Warrior Lights. So I'd probably give this a little bit below average. All right, Bart's. Best art in the set gets right here, and then unfortunately it's not very impactful, because once again we're very centered on the Warrior of Light. It's only a 1 CP 5k. The fact that it's a 1 CP 5k almost makes it playable. It will trade with some of those 2 CPs, but I really don't see people wanting to play this in most of their decks. Oh wait, I did forget actually. So you can pay 4 and break anything, but then you're paying 5 and you're breaking something. Yeah, okay, never mind. Bart's will get a 6 at me. Yeah, this guy's fine, but not exceptional. Chaos. So he gets 2 cheaper based on all of the different colors that they have played so far. For that, you get to steal something. When he comes in, obviously the effect's very, very strong, but the card's very, very expensive. I'm going to assume most of the time you're going to pay 7 CP for this effect, which is probably appropriately costed. And then being an 8k, also probably appropriately statted. It feels, strangely enough, fair for what it does and how much it costs. So I'm actually just going to give it about the same as Bart's. Right? It's going to be the same. The fact that these are light and dark cards also obviously really hurts. I mean, obviously you can play them in any deck, but it really hurts because you can't pitch them. So if they're the worst card in your hand, you still have to hold on to them. So I am, keeping that in mind with all of these light and dark cards. Big downside in limited, because it forces your line of play. All right, Twintania. So this one's a little different than all the others, because at 2 CP, you can throw this out. 2 CP 8k, we're looking at actually really good bang for our buck for cost to power ratio. And then the effect of gating the Giga Flare counters and dealing 7k is going to be actually very relevant. Um, and since it comes in dull, it's going to come in, gain the counter, untap, and then shoot something, and then attack. This card's going to be very, very good and very useful. It being cheap, it's not going to clog your hand too much, and there's almost no time where you don't want to just run this card out. So we're actually going to go ahead and give Twintania a nice rating there. Then other than that, we just have these beautiful crystal cards. I don't think I have this set up for the starters. No, okay. Dang. So just let's see if I can find those starters real quick. I'm not gonna worry about it. I'll probably just delete that starter section. There's a chance you can see these starters. They're all fine, mostly. Just kind of evaluate each one of them. Most of the time, you're not going to see these in your limited pools. So I'll actually probably just delete this section before I link this. You do have a chance of seeing these legacy cards as well. Lena does not have too many phenomenal targets. It's okay. Keep in mind, you can't even pull out Leo with it, so it actually kind of really hurts. And then other than that, it's just a 7k for 5, so it's actually gonna be pretty underwhelming. Actually, it's probably Vayne is an annoying card. It will punish the wide boards, etc. So we'll actually give it a pretty good rating. And then the I thought it was, somebody said Ash, so I'm gonna go with Ash. Ash is phenomenal. If you get Ash, it's the 4 CP, I believe. If that's correct, that was very, very good limited card and would help a lot in this limited as well. So we'll give it an 8. Yeah, so we'll probably just delete this starter section here, but we'll come back over and look at everything here. So here's everything in the set. As you can see, our scores here. And we can just kind of rate mostly based on those scores. If I had to give my personal opinion, obviously Earth is definitely going to be on top for the best element. You've got your soirees, you've got lots of good removal, you've got lots of big creatures. This is everything you want in limited. After that, so Fire's got a lot of ping and a lot of removal. Obviously, you know, as we look at their overall score, Luso's kind of weighing them down a little bit. But that's not going to matter because he's a legend and you're not going to see him that often. So, you know, if we were to pretend Luso was actually a good card, yeah, it would bring Fire up a lot. But even from there, I would definitely go Earth first. Water's probably close to the back. Wind has some fun synergies, but overall its card pick is not very strong. Unless you get Wool or Cecil, I'm not crazy about going into Wind. I do like the combo of the Chocobos and Chocobo Sam, but other than that, you're also not like crazy about it. Like even Zidane, as I mentioned, I don't think is a reason to jump into Wind. I think you really need Wool or Cecil for those effects in limited. And then you just have a lot of very mediocre cards other than that. So Wind actually, Wind and Water are just fighting for last here. But yeah, I think Wind has more reasons to go into Wind, but overall its overall card stock is a little worse. I think Water, Leviathan's definitely helping carry Water a good bit, as well as Titus. You know, you've got good cards in Tros, Sarah Mobius, and Firion, like especially at common, Firion being very good. But they've got so many other duds of like Andrea and I think one of the worst Shigens in the set. So moving from there, I think Fire's gonna end up coming in right about here. I think Lightning actually is gonna be here, so it's actually going to be pretty much the same. I think Ice is a little bit below Fire, even though the scores say differently. I personally think that it's gonna be close to this for the final ranking of like which elements I'm gonna try to do. Once again, keep in mind like it depends on what strategy you're doing, everything. But definitely try to pick up some earth in your sealed pool. I would take first glance at that. There's just a lot of power in earth. Any of the backups that are fours are very important. Obviously, the King Tycoon, the backup, is not factored in on these average scores. I don't factor in the backups. Um, but then for the forwards, you know it's definitely a very consistent pool for fire. Like they're just good cards all around. And then ice, you've got some notable picks with the Shantoto, the heavy armor, and Laswell. Where's that other guy? Biblos. Here he is. Yeah, Biblos is definitely going to be one of the big reasons you go into ice. If you get Biblos, I would strongly consider going into ice. And then, of course, you have the Black Waltz deck to really consider for limited. Black Waltz, you've got Soiree, you've got Shijen, so you've got all of those tribals. I don't think any of them are bad. Just be careful about bending over too hard for some of the like reach colors. Like don't go 3, 4, 5 color. It's not gonna work out for you, except for with the Shijens and the Soirees. But don't go fully into those other colors. I would mainly for the Soirees stay in Earth Wind, and for the Shijens, pick 2 of the main colors and then splash the other 2 Shijens. So that way you don't overextend yourself. Other than that, that's going to be the general wrap of everything in the limited. As mentioned, this Excel document is linked below. Hopefully everybody gets some good use out of this, and hopefully everybody has a lot of fun at their pre-release or all their limited of the set. The set looks like a lot of fun, and I'm really excited to kind of dive into it in the upcoming weeks. And best of luck on your pulls, and stay cool.